Time to look at a few more charged up Mechanicus weapons. Today we have the leaked datasheets for the Onagers and the Serberys. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where today we're looking at a few more leaked datasheets from packaging from the Admech kits, with a few interesting new profile changes and some drastically souped up guns. Today we have one of the main gun platforms of the army in the Onager Dunecrawler, and one of my favourite units in the Codex in the Serberys Raiders. So let's see how their stat lines and profile have changed. First up, we'll start with the Onager. At the moment, certainly a solid fire support piece in the Admech army that does face stiff composition with things like the Castellan robots, Scorpius tanks, and Iron Strider ballistari. From this new datasheet, it seems that we don't have any stat line changes to the thing. It still remains 11 wounds at toughness 7, 8-inch movement and hits on 3s, but out of its 4 weapon systems, 3 of them have been buffed. First up, we have a fairly predictable buff to the neutron laser. It used to be damage D6 and get 3 at a minimum. Now, like a lot of the heaviest anti-tank weapons in 40k, it's gone up to D3 plus 3 damage, and also been boosted to strength 12, which I guess will help out on certain units such as toughness 6. It still does remain D3 shots though, meaning that it's never going to be the most reliable gun platform in the world. The neutron lasers can be very swingy indeed, with at least a very good chance of doing literally nothing on any given turn. Overall, in general, it's still swingy, but the average damage output has increased from 4 to 5, so it does have a bit more bite than it used to. For what it's worth, we can also see the profile of the Cognis Stubber as well. It's now Assault 4 rather than Heavy 3, and it does seem that will be the change for Cognis weapons. Maybe Assault isn't really the biggest deal on the Onager, which you won't be wanting to advance anyway, as it's got loads of heavy weapons, but could potentially be quite nice on things like the Dune Rider, which might certainly want to advance to get a bit more movement. Those Dune Riders look like they will be spitting out a fair bit of anti-infantry fire, with no less than 16 shots. Next up, we have the Eradication Beamer and the Twin Heavy Phosphor Blaster, both of which were just a little bit lackluster compared with the Neutron and the Icarus in my opinion. The Eradication Beamer used to be D6 shots, 36-inch range, strength 8, AP-2 and damage D3, and now it's got 2 different profiles. On its standard profile, it's got AP-3 and damage 2, that's still out to 36-inch range, but it gets dramatically nastier if you're up close within 18 inches. When you're within 18-inch range, its AP goes up to -4, and its damage goes up to 3. Seems like at least when up close it's going to be quite effective against things like Gravis Armoured Space Marines. That flat 3 damage will really make a difference there. Compared with the other options though, I'm still not sure I'm super excited about it. It's still very swingy, and he's still only averaging something like 1 or 2 dead Space Marines per turn. Maybe if it did cost significantly less than the other options. Next up we have the Twin Heavy Phosphor Blaster, which was by far the worst choice on the Onager before. It seems Heavy Phosphor Blasters have gained +1 shot, so this twin one has gone up to 8, and its damage characteristic has gone up to damage 2 from damage 1. So 8 shots at 36 inches, AP-2 and damage 2. That will be killing you more Space Marines on average, around 2 or 3 rather than 1 or 2, and will be decently better against hordes of light infantry as well. I'll be really interested to see if the Castellan robots get the same change going up to damage 2. To be honest, I would be very surprised if they're going to keep a double shoot rule if they're spitting out 12 shots at base, but even so, that's a very scary amount of firepower now you have the extra damage. Seems they'll be decently more effective against heavies and Space Marines, maybe a little bit less effective against hordes if they can't double shoot. Overall, it's certainly going to depend on what sort of points they get. It's almost certain that Onagers won't be getting core, so I'd be very surprised if we're getting any sort of rerolls or major damage buffs from characters. It does seem that the Icarus array is entirely unchanged, but its weapon profiles are no longer listed together, so it could be an indication that they might be able to split fire in the new decks. That would help a lot, to be honest, rather than having to fire lots of different weapon profiles all at the same unit. Moving on, we come to the Serberys Sulphurhounds and Raiders, and it does seem that on their base stats alone they've had quite a few changes. Perhaps the biggest news is the fact that their defensive profile has changed. They used to be toughness 3 and 3 wounds, they're now toughness 4 and 2 wounds. I think overall that is a small nerf to them. Even at toughness 3, having a good armor save and 3 wounds made them really tanky before. Now they will be a little bit less so, I'm afraid. They're pretty much the same durability against any strength 3 weapons from the change, but they'll typically be weaker against anything that was strength 4 or more, much weaker against damage 2 weapons that'll kill them in 1 shot now, and only perhaps slightly stronger against damage 3 weapons that have strength characteristics that actually care about the change from toughness 3 to toughness 4. Overall, a little bit less tanky, though to be honest I'm not too surprised that they've chosen to go down this route. Usually bikes or cavalry typically give you +1 wound and +1 toughness, so this just seems to make a bit more sense via convention if you compare their toughness to the standard Skitarii line infantry. They also seem to have got a little bit harder hitting as well. They've all got 2 attacks now rather than 1. So presuming clawed limbs still give you 2 extra attacks and they haven't changed that, that's going to be 4 attacks coming out of the raiders each turn. Should be pretty good for cutting down a few toughness 3 or toughness 4 units. Otherwise, for the actual specific units, it seems that raiders have gained an extra AP-1 on those galvanic carbines of theirs. Those are the close range sniping ones with 18-inch range and 2 shots at strength 4. If their pre-game move and points cost hasn't changed too much, that could make a really big unit of them a massive threat to enemy characters. In theory, a big unit of 9 could average 1 Dead Space Marine Captain between their regular damage and mortal wounds. Really though, raiders were so good before because of their pre-game movement and their amazing Tactica Obliqua stratagem. I certainly wouldn't be too surprised to see Tactica Obliqua either toned down or taken away entirely in the new decks. With just how crazy it can make them as a screening unit, I really think it's likely to get reined in. I hope you see what I did there. Anyway, moving on to the Sulphur Hounds. The biggest news for the Bernie Dog horses is that their Sulphur Breath has been boosted up to 12-inch range and AP-2. They're basically pistol D6 flamer weapons, and a bit of extra range and extra hitting power really is going to make them quite a big threat to most things at close range. Again, just theoretically, a big unit of 9 of these guys would average around 7 Dead Space Marines if you're counting between their Phosphor Pistols and their Flaming Breath. Aside from that, they've had a few minor tweaks to their unique bits of war gear. The Phosphor Blast Pistol is a bit less weedy now. It gets D3 shots at Strength 5 AP-1. That's up from 1 shot, so not bad. The Phosphor Blast Carbine, which you can upgrade 1 guy to carry, has got a bit more random. It used to be Assault 4 shots at Strength 5 AP-1. It's now Assault 2D3 for some reason. Maybe they're giving it the Blast Special rule as a perhaps minor buff, but most of the time I guess it's just going to be rolling more dice for the sake of it. Finally, the Arc Mauler is looking really quite nice. That's going all the way up to Strength +3, AP-2, and with 3 attacks that is going to make the Raider Alpha a bit more of a threat in close combat. At least he has a good chance of stacking a save or 2 on enemy infantry now, and they don't really care too much about being in close combat as they all have pistol weapons. So overall, plenty of interesting changes to them. They're both going to be quite point-sensitive units, I think, though. Being fairly fragile but fairly useful really is going to put them very close as to whether or not they're worth it. Losing their 3 wounds to go to 2 wounds really is quite a big blow. They'll be so much more susceptible to damage 2 weapons, which are kind of everywhere. So anyway, certainly interesting to go over a few more new unit rules. If you're interested in seeing more, I will be trying to keep up with as many Admech leaks and previews as we can as we go into the run-up to the new codex. So feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see that, and if you'd like to help support the channel, I'd just like to quickly mention the channel's Patreon page down in the video description. Making all this content does take a fair amount of time, so if you are enjoying regularly, any support is massively appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, such as seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next, and automatic entry to the prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.